Hi, my name's Dilloway. I'm a tape music uh, player, and I'm here at my home in Oberlin, Ohio. Number one, Sledgehammer, David A. Pryor, 1983. My friends and I, when we would go to video stores, we would spend a lot of time digging through, looking at the boxes, and we had a couple rules of movies, of what we would rent. We would rent any movie that said it was banned in 35 countries. We would rent any movie that didn't have a photo from the movie. If you like look at the box and you turn it over and there's just no, it's just like a crude drawing on the front. You turn it over, there's just nothing to really tell you what it might be like. And anything that was in a big box, in the later years, the only, the big boxes that VHS used to come in started disappearing. So in the early 90s, it was kind of like anything that was still around in a big box, we'd rent that. Andrew W.K., who some people might know as a party rocker, he's an old friend, and we hung out a lot in the early 90s. And we were at the video store at Hollywood. It was Hollywood Video at the time. No, it was Video Watch at the time. And we saw this movie on the shelf, Sledgehammer, and it's in a big box, big clamshell box. The glare there, no photo of anything on the back, and it's a movie from 1983. And we thought it was really funny that that they said it was in color. they made a point to say it was in color. And then the sticker was just this, it looks like they just printed it out at Kinko's and stuck it on there. So it really was calling to us. It's a haunted house movie. It's about a child who, I guess an abused child who is locked in a closet by his mother while she has an affair. And, but she and her lover are murdered by a man with a sledgehammer while he's in the closet. Or maybe it's him. But then some kids come to party in the house like 20 years later or so, and they start dying off.
Now we're gonna have some real fun.
Hey, an orgy! All right, that's what we're waiting for.
You fool that you have.
Hey, let's get started.
Put your shit on. Quiet. I'm talking about a seance.
There's a lot, I'll go into this in a second, but there's a lot of slow motion in this movie. But there's a slow-mo scene where she locks the kid in the closet, it slams the door, and then, it's they didn't even bother to fully screw in all the screws on the lock. The whole bottom is not even screwed in. But yeah, that's something that Andrew and I really fell in love with. And if you watch, he made a film called Who Knows, Andrew W.K. Who Knows, and it's filled with slow motion. What I think David Pryor was doing was trying to get the movie long enough to get it to 90 minutes so he could sell it to a video distributor. Is why I think they put so many, there's scenes that repeat, there's just so much slow motion in it.
No, Chuck, no!
And then it's just got that one synth tone. It's like A-Track's Morgue or something, just this like, the music is really minimal. It's just synth and acoustic guitar. And there's, one of the characters plays guitar, and it's like kind of finger picking acoustic stuff. And for the most part, it's kind of this pretty stuff, but then occasionally it'll get into this odd sort of like, I don't know, Fahey, or just like, it's like something's off, you know. But yeah, the synth is so minimal and so just crude and cheap sounding. It's really striking. I've got a lot of favorite scenes. I've got a lot of favorite scenes from it. I really enjoy the slow motion scenes. There's the door closing in slow motion is one of my favorite scenes, which happens twice, once at the beginning and then once at the end in a flashback. And it's just her locking the door with this unfinished lock. There's the scene where the main couple, which is Ted Pryor is the kind of main guy. That's the director's brother. There's a scene where he and his girlfriend are walking, and it's in slow motion. There's this pretty guitar and flute. I forgot there is flute as well. And they're walking in slow motion, and it's beautiful and pretty, but then he takes a beer can and sets it on her head, and it falls off her head in slow motion, and they both start laughing. Number 2, Sorcerer, directed by William Friedkin in 1977. Can you hear that? I think. Oh, okay. I think someone laid an egg out there. There's a chicken going crazy. So it's this film about these 4 men who each find themselves in these just kind of desperate situations. The first half of the film kind of goes through each of their stories, and they end up in South America, having to taking this job transporting nitroglycerin through the jungle in jeeps. You know, it's kind of got a Herzog sort of quality of just like, how did they actually film this? And then the soundtrack, which is by Tangerine Dream, which is just probably my favorite Tangerine Dream record, is that soundtrack to that film. It's just so perfect.
4 men take an incredible chance, face an impossible challenge, and risk the only thing they have left to lose.
I mean, I think the classic scene that, you know, they use on the poster and the box, and of them going over that bridge, totally impossible, and just, you know, the one guy getting out and guiding the other one and then falling through, and just, it's, yeah, the sound to that is just, you know, which we touched on with the squeaking of the ropes and the breaking of the wood and the sound of the Jeep, you know, struggling, and them screaming and wind, and it's really overwhelming. And just, yeah. It is a remake of a film called The Wages of Fear from, I think, 1947. But it's equally as intense, and like, this is a remake I don't mind at all. Like, they're both incredible. You know, usually I get kind of bummed out when a remake is made, but this is one I'm glad was made. And it's kind of hard to say which is better, even. Like, Wages of Fear is really incredible on its own right. I think this one maybe strikes me more because the soundtrack. I feel like really good films with high budgets don't get made anymore. The stuff that gets the high budget are the superhero movies and the just, I don't know, a lot of dreck. Just that's a film that is of a time where, I don't know, like, you know, I have this Holy Mountain poster behind me. It must have cost a ton to make that. I mean, just everything about it is just huge. Yeah, the answer cannot be left in the hands of the money men. And that it's really a shame that, like, outside of maybe, you know, Matthew Barney, like filmmakers don't get budgets to do insane movies like that anymore. Number 3, Playtime, Jacques Tati, 1972. It's this film of this man going through, I mean, there's quite a few spaces that he makes his way throughout the film, but there's always just so much going on around him, even if he's in an empty room. The way the sound is recorded, that even if he's in an empty room, there's something going on. And it's just, there's so much to look at, to listen to. It's just an incredible film that I don't think I've ever seen anything else like. It's a comedy for sure, I think, but it's also just like a, gosh, I don't know, it's like a moving painting.
Mais aussi votre film. Que vous soyez président directeur général ou son chauffeur, technocrate, plombier zingueur, japonais au singulier ou japonais au pluriel, femme du monde ou démonstratrice, ménagère ou étudiante.
It's just something I'll just put on while I'm working on something around the house, and it's just great to hear it in the background or walk by it and look at a scene and laugh. The way I first saw this film was I was on tour in Europe, and we were staying at this house in Belgium with this person that had hundreds and hundreds of dubbed movies, and they were all cataloged by numbers, and it was really odd. But I was staying there with the singer for the band Caroliner, and he was like, "Oh man, we got to watch this. It's like it sounds like a Rinselstern and Gurgelstock record." I was like, "What?" You know, like, and then it started, and I'm like, "How is this?" You know, but there's a scene in that where he's in the waiting room. I think it's in the airport, but it's outside the elevator. There's these 2 chairs outside the elevator, and it's him and this other guy, and they like come and they sit down on these chairs, and it's just like he stands up, and it sounds like Rinselstern and Gurgelstock. Silence, and then number 4, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper in 1974. Yeah, as a kid, I remember, you know, just seeing pictures of Leatherface in Fangoria magazine, and I feel like I must have seen it at a young age, but on like just a crummy video tape. Yeah. But I don't think it was until maybe high school that it really dawned on me how it just kept holding up over these other horror films that I was into, and I kept finding more in it. Both Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Shining get more intense every time I see it, and the older I get. There's always something more to find in it, and just just really an incredible film. And just gruesome, and I mean, it goes without saying, right? I mean, it's I think what struck me as a kid early on when I saw it was the graininess of the film. I mean, it just didn't look like any other horror movie.
The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes in America.
And the sound, like the combination of the sound and the just that texture of the film stock. I just don't know any other film that has that. The look of the film is filthy. Everywhere they go is filthy, and it really, you know, I can't, even thinking about it just makes me kind of frown. It's a sickness, you know. It's like these people are sick, and it's there's no reason for any of it to be happening except for their sickness. And I used to have a problem with the old man, the grandfather, you know, because that definitely takes away a bit of the reality, because it does look like a man in a mask. It doesn't really look like a real old man, you know. And the rest of the movie is so real. But I over the years I've kind of also come to embrace that, because it is, you know, it is what it was, you know, a low budget horror movie, you know. But there was a time when that scene with the grandfather kind of took me out of it, because before that happens, it's just kind of like, you know, it does have this look of a Super 8 film. Well, I think that soundtrack is definitely one of the biggest influences on my sound and work. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there were times in Wolf Eyes where we were just, you know, trying to get, you know, it was kind of like a goal to get a sound that could make you feel the way that sort of sound, you know, that sound, in which I still don't know how the hell they made it, but it's the most, it just makes you cringe every time you hear it. It's just like, you know, your back is just getting like, you know, I used to use a tape of it occasionally that I would, you know, manipulate with the reel-to-reel at times in Wolf Eyes. But there's especially one part of it where or one incident where we were playing a live show at it was one of the No Fun Fests, but it was like this big gig in a, you know, a big place. And I was playing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tape, and, you know, just kind of bringing in a little flutter of it that would get caught by the the reel to reel and echo out. At one point, I must have like forgot to pull the fader down, and we go into this real kind of quiet section, and all of a sudden you just hear like perfectly clear, Jerry, Jerry. And I thought like there was a mic on the side of the stage, and someone must have grabbed a mic, and we all did just kind of look at each other and we're like, what the fuck is that? Because it was also so familiar, because I'm like, I know that voice. I know that. I'm just like, what is happening? And then all of a sudden I remembered, I'm like, oh yeah, I was playing the chainsaw tape. And I'm like, shit. The editing is like, yeah, I mean, I think it's the editing of the film where it's very precise, but very raw. You know, it's like, you know, Leatherface, like the meat hook doesn't actually show, you know, the gory, like, and that's something that I kind of do with my own work, with like editing tape together, where there is a preciseness to it, but I like to keep it raw. Like I'll use, you know, kind of crummy tape, or put, you know, my splices aren't quite perfect. And I think a lot of that comes from that movie. Yeah. I grew up watching horror movies. As a really little kid, I was, you know, I remember convincing my mom at my birthday in first grade to rent. It was back when you had to rent a VCR. We rented a VCR, and I got her to rent Friday the 13th and Halloween. And it wasn't until we were on the ride home, and I had seen Friday the 13th. I had this friend, Jeremy Deputat, who he's a very successful photographer. He's like Eminem's like right-hand man, like personal photographer now. But he lived across the street from me and was like my best friend from like age, I don't know, 3 to 8 or something. And I remember his parents would let us watch horror movies. And I must have seen it over there, but I remember on the ride home from renting these for my birthday, I said something to my mom, like, I can't believe you let me get these R-rated movies. She was like, what? Like, went back. That was like kind of classic, you know, third kid, early 80s mom, you know, kind of like, you know, I went in there with her, like, they let me rent this with you standing there? Like, I remember when my partner Erica and I first started dating, she came over to my house, and I think it was when I was living with John Olson, and we were watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think it was the first time, like, it had, you know, we were watching it on DVD for the first time or something. And she came over to hang out, and she walked in and she sat down for like 3 minutes and was just like, no, this is not a world I want to dive into. And she was like, I gotta go, I'm not. And I think to this day she's still never seen it. And yeah, I don't know, growing up it was always fantasy to me, and I could never take them seriously, so I always kind of and laughed at them. And we would, you know, I would always kind of gravitate towards, you know, the stuff that looked cheaper, the stuff I hadn't heard of. And so I watched a lot of low budget stuff, and it was just, there's kind of two mindsets that you can look at them in. Like, some of them are so low budget that you can't take them seriously. Some of them are so low budget that they look like snuff films or something, you know what I mean? I think with movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it wasn't until I was a bit older that it really you know, seeing it on DVD changed the way I looked at it. I'm like, you can see the filth clearer, and it makes you feel more awful and gross.
Yes. Yeah.
So the next film, number 5, Blood Feast by Herschel Gordon Lewis from 1963. Yeah, it's known as the first gore film, and yeah, 1963 color film. So this is quite a few years before Night of the Living Dead, but it's, you know, it's in color. It shows the blood, which it's so red. It's like you've never seen blood this red in a movie ever. So I really can't imagine what it must have been like for people seeing it. It was like, you know, a big drive-in hit movie. But it's about this caterer named Fuad Ramses, who's got some sort of strange delusions about like the reincarnation of Ishtar, and that he's got to murder these women as a sacrifices to Ishtar. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I mean, from the beginning, it's just the vibe of it is, you know, it's got this. It opens with this shot of the Sphinx, and the sound is just this kettle drum and like a French horn or a trombone just doing this like this kind of like really just kind of like exhausted sort of funeral march sort of thing that is just one of my favorite pieces of music ever. And then it says Blood Feast in blood, like it looks like it was written with a finger, like goes up over the screen, and then they must have used like a spray bottle, and then they kind of wash it off, and so the blood kind of drips down, and it's just like a very simple but amazing effect. Yeah, this was one of the films that, like, as a kid, you know, they just put this in the video store. You know, when I was like 6, 7 years old, I remember seeing this in the video store, and, you know, you turn it around and we'd just be like, oh my God, you know, what? It was just one of those that just constantly over the years, I just kept looking at that box and looking at that box. And then eventually, I think in middle school, maybe 7th or 8th grade, rented it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to witness some scenes from the next attraction to play this theater. This picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset. We urgently recommend that if you are such a person or the parent of a young or impressionable child now in attendance, that you and the child leave the auditorium for the next 90 seconds.
And, you know, just completely, like, you know, me and my buddies would just watch it it's really, crudely made, and it was one of the first movies we were getting into that was like a low budget movie that you're looking for the, it's like, oh, there's the boom mic, you can see those things, and just really bad acting, so this book here, very big influence on me. As with all of the research books, before the internet, these were like, between these and like the Amok catalogs, that was just where you found, the weirdest, strangest stuff. And this, Incredibly Strange Films, it's got, just a full chapter on a lot of different full chapters and interviews with a lot of different filmmakers. Herschel Gordon Lewis, another one of my favorite directors, Ray Dennis Steckler, who his editing style, I think, has been pretty influential to my music, actually, as well, just in his kind of just the crudeness of it. His biggest film, which is called The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies. That's his big film that he's mostly known for, but I think his best films are this movie called Rat Fink a Boo Boo, and a film called another called The Thrill Killers, and another called The Hollywood Strangler Meets the Skid Row Slasher. And this is just like, they're all done on just really, this is like shoestring budget stuff, but there's just these incredible scenes, and like Rat Fink a Boo Boo is like it's like a juvenile delinquent movie for the first half of the movie. Just, funny, but kind of a serious, just like, look at this. And then like halfway through it, one of the main characters and then just one of the side characters, like the gardener from the first half, all of a sudden don these really stupid costumes, and it turns into this like ridiculous superhero film. And this video version got renamed Rat Fink and Boo Boo, which was supposedly supposed to be the original title, but they screwed up when they were making the titling for the movie, so it became Rat Fink a Boo Boo. Like, that's the story, but like that's kind of his vibe. And there's a scene in The Hollywood Strangler, which that entire movie is done by overdub. Like, it was shot completely silent, and then the only sound in it is narration from the Strangler. But there's a scene in that, like, that always stuck to me, that's just like, God, that's amazing, where he's a photographer, and he's in this model's house shooting films of her, and then she's got a Kiss, the band Kiss, she's got like a Kiss towel, and then she like, and sets it down at one point. Is that what happens? Now I'm wondering if it's the towel or if it's the album of Kiss Destroyer. I think it's the album is sitting up as well. But like, there's like a really crude turn where it's like, it shows her room, and then you see that the Kiss album is sitting there, and then all of a sudden the camera just like, it's like he noticed it. It just turned the camera really quick and then zoomed in on this Kiss album. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? So little things like that I put into my music, where it's just like, with like either panning or just like, oh, this sound, it's just going to really concentrate on this sound, is just going to pop up and then just sit there for a while, like, and then just disappear. And you're just like, what the why did that? Well, yeah, I mean, this is, another book, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Companion, which was actually written by a fellow noise musician, Stefan Dwarzin, who I've still never met, but like, I hope to meet him someday, and I would love to talk to him about how amazing it is that he put this book together. The connection between avant-garde musicians and being influenced by underground film or underground movies. I used to, I've worked at record stores all my life. And so I would always, hunt through the soundtracks for synth soundtracks that were, made with synths, and found a movie called Lipstick. I kind of lump Lipstick and the movie The Shout and The Conversation. I kind of lump those all together, and The Stone Tape together, as these kind of, it's almost like, a fetish film for avant-garde musicians, Yeah, it's just, all of these, with The Stone Tape, using, the idea that the stone in this room has captured these sounds in it, and it is this, the sounds of these killings, or and that it's still living in the walls as like a piece of tape, or like on a piece of tape, or both The Shout and Lipstick are kind of these avant-garde composers. There's a scene and that's like, they're the main character in the story. So there's a lot of footage of like old tape machines and old synthesizers. And there's a great scene in Lipstick where he's setting up these microphones outside of his window, recording the birds, and then sending them through these synthesizers and recording it, and which is my Tusk set, which is similar to another set I did where I was recording these my chickens. My Tusk set is actually, I set up microphones out in the woods behind my house and ran them into my back porch. So it's in kind of a tribute to those films. And
do you remember that scene in The Shout? Like, I mean, The Shout has that amazing scene where just as a sort of 2-minute interlude, it shows him experimenting with marbles and microphones and synths and delays, and it's really fetishistic, as you say.
Yeah,
it's got this amazing interlude, but then the kind of visitor to the house in The Shout has this crazy scene where he kind of goes, "I've heard your music, it is worthless."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a scene in Lipstick that's just, my buddies and I would always laugh, because it's just like, it's like the most classic sort of like cliche noise dude. So they show him recording this stuff with the birds, and then he goes to meet with this woman, and he brings a tape recorder. And there's a scene where they sit down at her coffee table, and he just sets this tape, and he's like, "I want to play you my music." And he hits play, and it's just like, and he's just staring at her. And she's obviously just like, the phone rings, and she's just like, "I gotta go take that." She's obviously just not interested, and just like, what the hell is this? Another director that really, like, the sound and editing of his films were always a really big deal to me, were were these movies by Coffin Joe. Do you know this guy? Yeah, Jose Mojica Marins. Mojica Marins. Oh God, I have some friends that are going to get pissed at me for not being able to. But yeah, Coffin Joe, like he was a Brazilian filmmaker. He made these low budget horror films, and there's the sound to them is it's all. I mean, it's just it's kind of like it's very similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a lot of but then like mixed in with a lot of like really crudely edited screams and voices and you know, just kind of like scratching sounds, and he would, a lot of his titles would be done by actually scratching words into the film negatives. Wow. And he did an incredible one called Hallucinations of a Deranged Mind, which is this guy goes to a psychiatrist and starts explaining these awful dreams he has, and it's all just the most insane scenes from all his other movies. And it's the best. And yeah, and the way he edits stuff and his special effects were all really like just innovative, like, you know, shoestring budget. All right, we're gonna make this paper mache. You know, there's this scene, there's one movie where the whole movie's in black and white, and then they go down, these people get thrown down into hell, and the movie turns color, and they're in hell, and these walls, you know, you can tell they're all like paper mache, but he got all these people to like stick their arms through the paper mache, so there's these walls that look like stones with like these bloody stumps of arms that are stuck in the stones, but they're all still moving. His soundtracks are like, it'll just be like a bongo drum and screaming, and like it maybe be like a 25-second tape loop of a bongo with someone screaming like, ah, ah, ah. And then there'd be a really bad splice, you know, it would pause for a second and then start over again. It's just, everything about it is so just like, the crudeness of it is just like, God, I love it. I just, it's so homemade, and it's so imperfect that, you know, you're like, is this a mistake? Did he mean to do this? It's the best. Oh man, there's another movie I feel like I gotta talk about. Well, there's another film that's one of my in my top films that I like to watch with friends and show my friends that haven't seen it. It's a film called The Weirdo. It was the final film of Larry Milligan. Larry Milligan?
Andy Milligan, maybe?
Andy Milligan, Jesus Christ. The final film by Andy Milligan. And he was someone I tried watching a lot of his films, and they're just so boring. But a lot of them have really cool atmospheres to them. So they'd be good things to just throw on while I'm, you know, dubbing tapes but The Weirdo is a movie I've just watched and studied, and it's kind of this love story of this weirdo. And it's kind of become a running joke with me and my friends that, you know, this is my life story. This he's just this weird kid that no one can understand. And then he's bullied by all these kids. There's like these three bullies that are harassing him through the whole movie, and they were kind of like, I mean, that was kind of like Wolf Eyes when we would be on tour. Like, we would literally get out of the car and you know, push each other around, just total dumbasses, you know, and we're like these guys in this movie, you know, we're being goofy. But no, the editing in that film is another, like, it's a love story between this kid, Donnie, who, like, he lives in a shack, like, in the backyard of this old lady who, like, he helps out every now and again. She's got a little bell on a string that she'll ring when she needs him, and she'll scream, Donnie, Donnie, and he'll like, yes, you know, and he'll come out and help her, and he's just scared of the world around him, but he'll go and he'll find a log and just be like, oh yeah, you know, find this log, and he'll look at it for a while and pat it. And then he meets this girl named Jenny they were just down by the pond, and she's a weirdo too, although she seems kind of normal, like but then they start, like, having this conversation, and they're both drinking, they're pretending they're drinking orange juice because they can't get real orange juice or something, you know. It's like, good orange juice, yeah, you know, and they're just in this imaginary world together. But these bullies just keep harassing him, and it's just a bummer, and everyone just kind of pushes him over the edge. And so the second half of the film is like a horror film, but it's really like this, like, odd drama for the first half. But one of the things I really love about it, and I think it's similar to the slow motion of Sledgehammer, is Andy Milligan was putting, there's blank spaces in this movie where the screen just goes blank, and it'll just be like dead air, like, and at first it's just a little bit, but they kind of start getting longer as the movie goes on. Like, it's like, man. And I think he was just trying to get it to 90 minutes so he could sell it to a distributor. And so it's just adding in this black, you know, it's just like adding in like a couple extra minutes, like, oh, just put some blank space in here, because makes no sense with the editing. It's just like all of a sudden it'll go black for a while, and I just loved it. I love it. So yeah, thanks for having me. That's me talking about some movies. There's so many to pick from. It's hard I could just talk all day with you about movies. So yeah, I'll say goodbye. I just wanna, without saying anything more about them, there are a couple other films I didn't get to talk about. So I just want to say, go watch these movies. Oh Lucky Man, Sir Drone by Raymond Pettibone. Yeah, I'll leave it with those. Thank you. Take care.